If you've ever felt underpaid, overworked, or just like something isn't right at work and you don't know what to do about it, you're going to want to sit in on this episode. Because today I'm sitting in with Ryan Stygar, who is a former firefighter turned labor and employment attorney who has built a massive following, telling you all of the things that your boss doesn't want you to know. He's now putting it all into his new book, Get It in Writing, out May 12th, which is basically a handbook for how to protect yourself at work without blowing up your career. We talk about everything from wrongful termination and retaliation to HR myths to standing up for yourself in a system that often feels like it's stacked against you. Without further ado, here's Ryan Stygar. What I didn't realize is how much experience you had as a firefighter dealing with employment issues. Yeah. We talked briefly about it, but I don't know that we actually got into it. And secondly, how much, even as a lawyer, how many employment issues I've run into in my life where you've addressed certain problems or things that workers face. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited to talk about this with you. I have so many questions. I don't think you addressed it in the book, but why did you leave firefighting?
There were a number of factors involved with that. And I want to first say that, firefighting is a tremendous career. It's a wonderful career. It's an important career. And I'm privileged, I'm blessed that got to be part of my story at one point. And it's all I wanted when I was a kid. I always had the little fire trucks in my room. I had a little VHS tape. It was called There Goes a Fire Truck, and I would watch it over and over. It's all I wanted. And I got there, and I made wonderful friends. I got to serve my community. I got to do something hard. I got to do a hard thing, and I think that was good for my self-esteem. In a lot of ways, I feel like I grew up in the fire service. But as time went on, what I wanted out of life and what I wanted my future to look like changed a little bit. And it's not that there's anything inherently wrong with firefighting. It's a fantastic career. But I had to be honest that career could not give me the life that I wanted. That there's something that you give up when you become a firefighter, particularly in California. You give up a lot of control of your schedule. You give up a lot of predictability. When you get into the fire season, your schedule might say, oh, you're 3 days on, 4 days off, but there's a little thing called staffing pattern. Mm-hmm. And anyone who's worked in Cal Fire knows what I'm talking about, where it doesn't matter. We got a red flag, we've got a fire popping off, we got a strike team going out, you're on duty 18 days straight. And it doesn't matter if you RSVP'd to a wedding. It doesn't matter if, a family member's got a funeral. It doesn't matter if you prepaid a vacation. It doesn't matter what promises you made. You've got a duty to go do that. And that became difficult on me. It became difficult when I was realizing, hey, I've sunk so much into this career because I love it, but outside of work, what am I getting? And towards the end, I had this tough realization that I wasn't happy with my life outside of work. And I had to confront this feeling that I had wrapped my whole identity around a job. I want to be a firefighter. That's all I wanted to be. I've sunk so much into that basket, I forgot, okay, you're a firefighter, great. But who are you outside of that? And what kind of life is this job giving you? And it wasn't taking me where I wanted to be. So I had those feelings kind of brewing. And then I think you got to the part where I talked about the worst job I ever had. Mm-hmm. Or not worst job, worst boss I ever had. Mm-hmm. So already I kind of had these feelings. And then I had a terrible, terrible boss in the fire service. I call him Joe in the book, but he's based on a real person, a very disturbed person. At the time, I feared him. Now that I'm a little older, I pity him. He was just a bitter guy. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't happy with his life. And the only thing that gave him any joy, it seemed, was hazing young firefighters. And that was me. I was the low guy on the totem pole. I was the newest guy in the firehouse. And he picked on me because I was an easy target. And that took away the last bit of joy I got from the career. With that kind of manager, someone who's a bit of a sadist and who's just not interested in, teamwork, camaraderie, all the things I loved about the job were gone. So I had the doubt that had been brewing for a little bit, and then I had this horrible manager, and I thought, what am I here for? Mm-hmm. Is this really the life I want to sign up for? And the honest answer was no. So I made a change. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned so much in there, but the thing I really, I love that you're allowed, same. The thing that really struck me just now was you saying, that this manager made you not essentially want to practice in your dream field, which is devastating. And I actually think is a very common theme for a lot of people in their, what they want to be their dream job or dream scenario. And I think I'm not going to give away too much that's in the book because I want you guys to go read it. But I think, the thing that struck me, the case study that you mentioned in particular, was one where you said that you kind of wish you spoke up about certain workplace conditions and didn't, and somebody ended up dying because of those poor conditions and having a boss that was sadistic in that way.
Yeah, and it's certainly not giving anything away. I mean, the plot of the book, if we can call it a plot, is what are your rights, how do you enforce them, and how do you make sure you're treated with the dignity and respect that you're entitled to at work? We go to work and we give up so much control. And we get conditioned to think that because we give up, we have none. I mean, think about it. They control your pay. They control your schedule, your title, who you're going to work with, where you're going to work, how you're going to do your job. And at the end of it, you think, well, I'm just beholden to whatever the employer wants and whatever my boss says goes. We don't have the most robust workers' rights in the United States, but we do have something. And if you know what your rights are, and if you get some tips and tricks on how to use them, you can change things at work. And I do wish I knew that because the person who we call Joe in this book, he made life miserable for me. And he was the first supervisor I had in the fire service where I genuinely felt unsafe. I genuinely looked at him and thought, fuck, if I get hurt at a fire, I'm going to die. There's no way in hell this man who's done nothing but bully and attack and degrade me the whole time he's been here, there's no way he's going to risk his neck to help me. And you need that trust in the fire service. And so I felt genuinely afraid going on shifts with him. I was like, if I get hurt at a fire and this is the guy I have to trust to help me out, I don't like that. But, that experience is not particularly unique. It's my story and I shared it. And unfortunately, yes, after I left a couple years later, a firefighter he was hazing did pass away from heat illness. There was an investigation. He was disciplined, but not fired.
He wasn't fired?
He was not fired. And we can get into all the reasons that happened and why I think it's the unjust result. But the point is, what I experienced is not unique. I think there's a lot of people watching today, a lot of people reading this book who have a Joe in their life. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's not just Joe, it's the work conditions. Before Joe came, I was even looking around going, hey, is this really the best fit for me? I love the job, but the conditions of work, is this going to make me a good family man? Mm-hmm. Is this how I want to raise my kids? Do I want to be the dad who they can't know for sure if I'm going to be there? So already that was there. And for everyone having those feelings, you don't have to be a firefighter. You can be a lawyer. You can be an accountant. You can be working your first job at Costco, just stacking carts. Everyone has these problems. And so I wanted a guide that I really needed back then, but it didn't exist. You're not powerless. They don't hold all the cards. You have cards you can play. And I'm not saying you have to sue your employer every time something goes wrong. That's ridiculous. But just little strategies you can do to say, this is how I deserve to be treated, and I know how to get it.
Mm-hmm. What was your first instance, other than your personal work experience, where you realized, like, oh, this is a systemic problem that workers are facing every day?
I think it's hard to point to any one event. It's something that, I started working when I was very young, just little things, getting odd jobs, working in a summer cabin remodeling company, doing some landscaping, just little things like that to make money. And then my first formal job, I was a lifeguard at the city pools. Yeah. And that job was fine. I had a good time. I worked hard. I was grateful for the money I was making. But as I moved on from that job into other work, I noticed, hey, your boss isn't always looking out for your best interest. I mean, I would catch bosses lying to me about what I was entitled to. And even then, the internet existed. I could Google and be like, you're not being honest with me about when I'm supposed to get overtime. You're not being honest with me about when I'm supposed to get breaks. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't necessarily a deal breaker at the time, but it was just that first gut check, your employer either A, doesn't necessarily know the rules, mm-hmm. and even if they do know the rules, B, they don't care. And it's not always malicious. I'm not saying every boss, every employer is out to get you. I'm just saying they've got a business to run. They've got their own personal issues. They've got their own career ambitions that may not involve you. They're not particularly interested in your hopes and dreams, and they'd rather you stay quiet and not become a problem for them. Fine, we don't need to become a huge problem, but we need to establish boundaries so that whatever they're doing, at least they're not abusing you in the process. So was there a particular moment? I mean, in the book, I mentioned my job on an ambulance company, objectively the worst work experience I ever had in my life, degrading, horrible, but I got through it. I think it's a slow realization a lot of people have. I think we get so wrapped up in what do you want to be when you grow up? What's your career going to be? The first question people ask you is, what do you do for work? It becomes part of our identity. And I think we're afraid sometimes to confront that this really important thing can be such a scary negative force in our life if we lose control of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the biggest misconception that most people have about their rights in the workplace?
I'll tell you the number one is around at-will employment. At-will employment, it's the number one. It doesn't matter what my video is about, doesn't matter what I say. Everyone goes, no, that's not true. I'm in freaking Nevada. It's an at-will state. They can do whatever they want. At-will employment is the default rule in 49 states. Every state is at will except Montana. It's the only outlier, okay? Mm-hmm. And I mentioned Montana and how it's special in the book. But for 49 states, it's at will. So everyone who gets threatened with it, they start to think, oh, I guess this job is special. I have no rights here. Oh, I signed a contract. I'm at will. I have no rights. They don't even need the contract. You're at will by default. And what it means is you can be fired with or without notice for any legal reason. They like to forget that legal reason part. You still can't be fired for illegal reasons. And then, of course, the question comes up, well, all they have to do is not say the reason. Imagine for a moment you rob a 7-Eleven. You robbed it, and the cops grab you, and you say, wasn't me. Do the cops just say, oh my God, sorry for the misunderstanding. We didn't realize. Thank you for telling us that you did not break the law. Put on your way. And by the way, enjoy your ice creams and big gulps. Good, there you go. That's not how it works. Of course, the employer is not going to say, yes, we fired you because you are black. They're never going to say that. That is not going to happen. Mm-mm. Instead, as a workers' rights lawyer, there's patterns I look for. I very rarely, almost never am I going to get a straight confession. Instead, I have to piece together the evidence. I have to piece together the paper trail. What does the paper trail tell us? That's why I tell people, get it in writing, The Ultimate Guide to Your Rights at Work. And fundamental in this book is how to create a paper trail that protects you. So that if you are targeted for an illegal reason, if you are singled out, if they do fuck with your money, if they do fuck with your leave, if they try to push you out and then try to say, oh, it's poor performance, oh, it's at will, oh, we don't have to say the reason why. You can say, wait a minute. What you're saying, the reason you're letting me go, the reason you're demoting me, the reason you're denying me that bonus I've earned, it's not lining up with the facts. And thank God I got this book because I know how to lay out the facts in a way I can present my case. And again, if you have a good paper trail, you don't need to jump to a lawsuit. You can settle this stuff with just the evidence.
So how would somebody go about knowing whether or not what they have is essentially a case in that instance? So like if I want to get stuff in writing, do I just get everything in writing, or should I just, if I have a suspicion that something is off, I just get maybe that in writing?
You know, it's one thing to be responsive and say, hey, things are going bad. I want to start documenting my complaints to HR. I want to document the things that management is saying to me. I'm going to start gathering my pay stubs now because I think they're wrong. Look, it's better to be responsive than non-responsive, but you want to be proactive if you can. And I'm not saying you have to spend 2-3 hours a day documenting every little thing that, like, I think of that character Randall from the show Recess. You know what I'm talking about? He always with this stupid little, he was a snitch, remember? It was the whole thing. Randall was a little goody two-shoes snitch. He has little notepad and he was always. I love that you
quoted Recess, by the way.
Yeah, I know. No one does it anymore.
Yeah.
And that whomps, doesn't it?
No, totally. For sure.
But yeah, you don't have to be a little Randall. It's just little habits. You've got to understand what is an important communication between you and your boss. Generally, that's going to be anything that materially affects your work conditions, a change to your schedule, a change to your office, a change in who your management or team lead is going to be. That's the kind of stuff you document. If they mention anything about bonuses or commission structure or the path to a raise, keep that. I can't tell you how many high-earning people I meet who come to me and say, They promised me a $30,000 bonus, Ryan, and they did not deliver. I say, all right, show me the agreements. Show me the I don't need a contract per se, but at least give me some text messages where this is discussed. And too often I get, it was over coffee. They mentioned it would. Look, a verbal contract is still a contract. It's still enforceable. But how do I prove that it exists? And so that's why I mentioned tips in here. Like, how do I take a verbal conversation and commit it to writing without taking up all your time just documenting every little thing? So it's key to understand what is the kind of thing that should be written down and how to write it down.
I want you to reiterate what you just made a video on. Was it in the last couple of days? It's as a lawyer, I pride myself on taking this position because I get full control in these situations.
Yeah.
But I want you to recap what you recently said about being the person that opts to write the recap emails.
Yes. And this is something I do. I mean, I'm the boss at my firm. I own the firm. I'm the CEO. But I do this anyway, and it's not for any nefarious purpose.
No.
It's because I want a record of what was discussed. Be the person who types up summaries of every Zoom meeting, every face-to-face meeting, every phone call. And I know that there's this stigma. People go, well, I'm not the secretary. I'm not saying you're the secretary. I'm not the assistant. I'm not the note taker. No. This is a power move. You look helpful. You look organized, but you control the narrative. You decide what gets a bullet point, what gets emphasized, what becomes a footnote, maybe what wasn't important enough to make it on the summary. You decide that, not your boss, not HR. You decide that. And the person who consistently says, yeah, I'll just type up a quick summary of the call. It doesn't have to be long. You are the one who controls the narrative.
And if it's incorrect, somebody can speak up.
Somebody can speak up if they don't like it. But a lot of times people go, okay, cool, there's the summary. They move on. And I had some people comment saying, oh, Copilot does this. First of all, get serious. Who the hell's using Copilot? Unless you work for Microsoft and they'll shoot you if you don't use it. The point is not, oh, AI can do it. AI can do a lot of shit. You do it better. AI could have written a book. AI can, if you wanted, AI can write you can say, ChatGPT, write me a 300-page book about your rights at work. It will write you a book.
That'll be pretty good, too.
This is better.
Yeah, I agree.
This is better. Write a human summary. AI gets stuff wrong all the time.
Yeah.
Don't be anyway, the point is, any chance you get to be the person who controls the paper trail and controls the narrative, it's wise to take it.
I have seen too often situations where poor performers meet high performers, and more times than not, the high performers who are on their shit either get caught in the poor performers reframing kind of the narrative, or being like, oh, you said you were going to handle this, when really it wasn't even in their job description, and doing all of these things. So I think you said that yesterday, and I was like, yes.
I'm glad I got some snaps from you, Jen.
Just make the narrative.
You've got to watch it. As a poor performer, those lower performers often end up in management positions, because you got to think, if you see a really low performing person moving up the ranks, that's a red flag that's a dangerous person. That's a person who knows how to dance in the gray area. That's a person who knows how on the fly to change up the narrative. We never had that conversation. No, you said you would handle that, didn't she? I remember she said, and suddenly their incompetence becomes your problem. You become the cleanup crew. Now you're overburdened with even more tasks, cleaning up some other idiot's mess. And now suddenly your work is slowing down. And the low performer says, see, I told you Jen was a shit show. Look at her cleaning up my mess that there's no record of. And that's why the best counter to someone like that is making sure you have some documentation. And again, it's worth reiterating. What kind of things need to be documented? Meetings, dude, 5 bullet points. It can be so short. It's not hard. Meetings, anything that affects your pay, anything that affects your title, work conditions, schedule, pay stubs, pay reports, performance reviews, even the negative ones. And of course, all your hiring paperwork. Just as a basis, just keeping those things puts you ahead of 99% of people.
Do people only use performance reviews in like verbal form?
I've seen them in verbal form. I've seen, people do like the casual sit down. We're going to do a quick review. But even if it's documented by the company, keep those.
Yeah.
And by all means, respond to it. What's the harm in saying, hey, thank you for the performance review. I know we talked about my key metrics and you noted that I'm on track for this quarter. Thank you. Great. Now we have a paper trail establishing you're on track. So that way, a month later, when you get pregnant and say, hey, I'm going on FMLA, and they switch up and say, you're not meeting your metrics, your customers say you're flaky, it's like, a month ago, everything was perfect. Never had a problem here. Suddenly I tell you I need leave and now I'm the worst person in the world. Golly gee whiz, I wonder what happened. Mm-hmm. But you need a paper trail to tell that story.
For sure. Mm-hmm. How many people come to you and like don't have that paper trail?
Probably the majority.
Oh, damn.
Look, we can work with it because the employer does keep records of their own, and we can take that and figure out what's credible, what's not, what's the story telling you. I don't take everything I get from the employer as gospel. And for those unfamiliar in the litigation process, I'm going to get all your personnel records. I'm going to get a lot of their business records. I'm going to get a lot from them. And I don't just take it at face value. We look at the bigger picture. But if you don't keep any kind of paper trail, you're kind of putting your fate in their hands. Mm-hmm. You're letting them control that narrative. And look, I'm good at what I do. We can sort of revive the truth and kind of get through the noise there, but it really helps if you've got your own paper trail.
For sure.
Yeah.
I want to shift into what people are actually dealing with on a day-to-day, because I think a lot of people don't even realize what's normal versus maybe what's not, just in terms of what is a toxic workplace, what is not a toxic workplace, what's the difference between illegal and just shitty and toxic. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to throw some real life workplace situations at you, and you're going to tell me illegal. Now, as a lawyer, I understand the answer will likely be depends.
Yeah.
But for most situations, I think I made some of these fairly easy. So you're going to tell me if you think they're illegal or just toxic.
Okay, let's go.
All right. Being pressured not to take your lunch break.
Okay, I don't like that, okay? So here's the deal with lunch breaks. There's no federal law that says you must get a lunch break. Instead, the federal rule is if a break is given, if it's longer than 20 minutes, it's duty-free, you should be able to take your break. If it's less than 20 minutes, if they're keeping the duties on, you need to be paid for that time. California is a little special. California actually says that non-exempt workers must get a duty-free, unpaid 30-minute break. So there's more rules there. The problem is we get a lot of employers who don't want an interruption in their workflow. So they pressure you, just take it, leave 30 minutes early, violation. A late break is no break at all in California. You still get that meal penalty. Now, what a lot of employers do is they'll have you sign a meal waiver, a written waiver. It'll
the
be
meal
in your hiring
waiver.
paperwork.
Gotta love the meal waiver.
Yeah. And they're doing that so that if you end up taking it late or not getting it at all, they're not on the hook for the penalty. I've seen those hold up. I've seen them not be valid. But the point of all this legalese I just threw out, the federal and the California, when you are entitled to a break, you should take that break. And when an employer starts playing games like, just clock out 30 minutes early, or you can come late tomorrow, they're denying you the break. The purpose of that break is not just to give you 30 minutes any point in the day to rest. It is to hit a 30-minute break in the middle of your shift for you to get sustenance, because you're a human being, and to just rest for a moment. Because when we skip those breaks, now we start seeing people get sick, get hurt, they get sloppy because they're getting fatigued. It's a genuine risk. So anyway, pressuring you not to take breaks, I'm going to say illegal. I don't like it.
Salary, but expected to work overtime.
That is interesting. So
spoken like a true lawyer.
All things, I don't want to goob out and give you the whole breakdown of exempt, non-exempt. So let's presume for this question that you are legitimately a salaried exempt employee. Okay? For that purpose, pressure to work overtime, merely toxic. I'm sorry. You're salaried exempt. They can ask for a 70-hour work week and not pay you more. Now, if you work slightly less than 40 hours, your pay is supposed to be the same. So there's this idea that there's supposed to be this wash here. As long as you're getting close, it's the same. That said, one of the most common wage and hour violations I see is you are supposed to be hourly non-exempt, meaning that you would get overtime. But they put you on a salary. And then they tell you, well, your salary, so it's just the same every week. And some weeks it's more, some weeks it's less. Huge violation there. I've got a few cases on my books, a couple of them class actions for that exact same shit, where they think I can just put you on a salary and never pay you a dime of overtime. For them to deny you overtime, they can't just pay a salary. The salary has to be at least a minimum amount. In California, it comes out to about double the minimum wage. And you have to pass what we call the administrative exemption. You have to be doing primarily office-based, white-collar administrative work. There's other exceptions, but that's really the main one that we see. So remember, you got to be making at least double that minimum wage in California, and you have to have the right duties. The federal level, it's lower. I think it's closer to like 30. I wrote it down in the book. They changed it earlier this year. It's a little like 36,000 something a year. It's preposterously low. it was
for this economy.
They raised it for half a minute and then they sent it back. When Trump took office again, they abandoned those efforts to raise that minimum threshold. But the point is, check it. And I put the numbers in the book so that you know exactly, am I entitled to overtime, yes or no? And just because your boss says you're not entitled to it, just because you're salaried, doesn't make it true.
Ask to clock out, but keep working.
I fucking hate that. Can I say fuck? I've said it like 8 times already.
Yes, you can.
I hate that. I hate that. Why are you working if you're clocked out? I hate it.
I know.
It's all kinds of things. It's a minimum wage violation. They're failing to pay you the minimum wage. It could be an overtime violation because all that adds up. Why are they doing that? They are asking you to give up your most precious, irreplaceable resource, your freaking time, for free. Why are they entitled to that? And I got to say, as a workers' rights lawyer who comes, I sue a few hundred employers every year, and I meet the worst of the worst. I meet the most entitled, whiniest little dickbag bosses you ever met in your life. And these assholes really think that they're entitled to your time for free. Because why? Why? Because I started a business and I'm a big important business owner. Fuck you, man. You don't get to take someone's time and labor for free. If you want their time, you got to pay for it. And if you're making people clock out to do free shit for you, you're going to hear from me at some point.
Preach.
I think I need to take a walk.
Oh, no, right now. We can take a break if you need.
No, I'm good.
No, this is what I love. This is what I love about you, Ryan. You report an issue at work and suddenly your schedule changes.
Don't like that.
Yeah.
Look, there's a couple of things going on there. So I want to know what the issue is. If the issue is, hey, I've got a really bad relationship with this coworker, we're not getting along, they're bullying me, they're making me feel bad, they may change your schedule to separate you guys. Nothing illegal there. If your issue is, hey, my boss keeps trying to look down my shirt, he keeps touching me, I keep telling him not to touch me, please, can we have some training on just appropriate boundaries at work? And next thing you know, you're bumped down to part-time. That's a big fucking issue. I got a problem with that. That's retaliation for protected activity, specifically retaliation for what we would call hostile work environment, sexual harassment. Your boss doesn't have to proposition you for it to be unlawful sexual harassment. Even, inappropriate gazing. I've had a lot of cases with bosses trying to look down my clients' shirts, try to look up their skirts, just ogling them, making them feel uncomfortable. It's not illegal for someone just to look at you funny here and there, but if it's persistent staring, making you feel uncomfortable, that coupled with a few inappropriate remarks, and especially if they put their hands on you, that's a problem.
I'm going to take a side tangent from this rapid fire for a second to say the amount of instances of the case studies that you mentioned in this book, in addition to stuff I know recently that has happened for either colleagues or coworkers or anybody that has just confided into me generally that have happened to women in the workplace with the creepy bosses or just like weird energy in general, and the pregnant women in general seems to be a prominent issue.
It is. It is. Statistically, 3 out of every 4 women you meet will experience some kind of sexual harassment at work in their careers. 3 out of 4. And this is a problem that is consistently underreported. So what are the numbers really? I don't know. I mean, it's probably higher. And that comes from our own government. That data comes from the EEOC. This isn't... a lot of times I hear people say, oh, well, I've never seen it, so I don't think it's that serious. Well, I've never actually seen a bobcat in real life. It doesn't mean it's not fucking real. I mean, so I want to set the record very straight here. I am a feminist, and I become more of a feminist the more I work in this field because I see how prevalent these problems are. And they've actually invaded the workspace to such a high degree that a lot of objectively unacceptable behavior becomes normalized. It was just a joke. Oh, he's just friendly. He's like that with everyone. Oh, don't mind Bill. He's a hugger. Fuck all that. Bill didn't hug me, but he's hugging Jen a lot. Is Bill just a hugger, or maybe Bill's a creep? And it's a shame that we look at, we're going to get some real hot takes here. Here we go. We look at the blow up with Eric Swalwell that came up. we've had half a dozen women come forward. What happened to them? Immediately attacked. Immediately, we're seeing news articles slandering them, saying that they're hysterical, they're paid agitators.
That's the MO.
Yeah, look at the Epstein victims. Not one arrest in the United States, not one. And there's thousands of them. There's not a dozen, there's not a few hundred, there's thousands of them. And they're treated like they're the bad guys. How many times? Harvey Weinstein, his victims, attacked, slandered, dragged through the media, she wanted to be famous. Fuck you. This is a serious problem. And we've created an ecosystem where it's not even safe for a lot of survivors to come forward. So one thing, and I'm so glad you asked this question, Jen, one thing I hope this book does is I hope we get enough copies out there that we at least normalize the discussion of, hey, when someone comes to you and says, I'm being targeted in a sexual manner at work, you recognize how much courage it takes just to say that, because it's scary. A lot of my clients come to me, the first thing they say is, he's got a lot of money. He can hurt me. He can ruin my life. I'm scared. It shouldn't be that way. Mm-mm. We should have the kind of society where if someone crosses the line and makes someone feel unsafe in their own skin, we can collectively say, hey, that's not okay. We're going to put a stop to that. Not attack the person who asked for help.
There's a lot of people in positions of power who will retaliate too, and will sue and just paper you until, I think that's one of the things I wanted to talk about was this idea. You talk about this idea or general theme of fear. And the reason why a lot of employees do not come forward or do not say anything is fear out of losing their job, fear out of losing their income, their livelihood, getting blacklisted. Specifically, there's a lot of different industries where there's this idea, and the first thing that comes to mind is actors, mm-hmm. gig economy, so entertainment, even lawyers, but right now I'm thinking actors, entertainers, rappers, singers, whatever, where if you speak up about any sort of injustice, there is a legitimate fear that you will never work in that industry again. Now, mind you, this is just because I've been in these industries, mm-hmm. and also as a lawyer, I've seen some lawyers.
Oh, you know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Absolutely.
How does an employee who's thinking about speaking up or saying something or is being wronged or unjustly treated, what would your advice be to that person who has a legitimate fear? Because it still exists, and regardless of what people say, mm-hmm. I know people who disappear off the face of the earth from whatever industry they were in because they said one thing that was not okay. Mm-hmm. But what would you say to that employee who's thinking about speaking up and is afraid to never work again?
Quite a bit, because, in a sense, I've been there. I can never understand fully the sheer physical terror that a woman or a marginalized person feels in that environment. But I remember in the fire service, I wrote about getting hurt once and being afraid to speak up about the injury because I was scared I would never work again. That is this, and the issue we're addressing here is this. It's a microcosm. Here's what I would say. First, don't get down on yourself because you're scared. Fear doesn't make you a coward. You're not a coward to feel fear. Fear is your body trying to protect you from danger. And you are right, there is danger. There's people who might try to shut you out of an industry or punish you or slander you. What happens if you do not speak up? The abuse is going to continue. It will likely get worse. Harvey Weinstein was a monster. And his monstrosity, as we heard over the course of his trials, got more depraved as time went on. He didn't slow down with old age. He got worse. He got emboldened. And the horrific abuse that he put his victims through, you can't blame them for being quiet. I understand why. Just know that it's not going to get better if you ignore it. It is probably going to get worse. Speaking up is scary. Speaking up has consequences. How you speak up matters. Being strategic matters. The thing about these abusers, I've sued a lot of them, I've deposed a lot of them, I've sat with a lot of abusers and predators. One thing that I mentioned this in the book, a lot of them suffer from hubris. A lot of them suffer from arrogance. They think they're untouchable because of their position. You can outsmart them. It's how you raise the complaint. It's who you talk to, how you document it. This protects you. They lose a lot of their ammo when you have a paper trail that shows, hey, here's what you did to me. Here's who I reported it to. Here's how I reported. Here's what happened next. A lot of times they want, and they also try to use the law to confuse victims. I have a whole section in there about non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, these contracts they throw at you. I've had more than a few of my clients tell me they were afraid to talk to a lawyer and they were afraid to look at their options because they had signed an NDA. And the abuser...
Speak to that.
Yeah, the abuser had told them, if you come after me, I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to sue you and I'm going to make you homeless. Like, the threats I have heard are absurd. And they're not only absurd, they're not true. An NDA cannot be used to silence illegal activity, unlawful labor practices, or sexual abuse. It's not valid for that purpose. But the thing is, a lot of these guys, it's mostly guys, I'm sorry, they know that their victims are young and may not have any legal sophistication, so they'll just lie about what the document is. Yeah, you waived your right to sue me, but I can sue you. If you violate your NDA, I'll destroy you. The point is, it is not a zero risk activity, speaking up. I'm not going to sit here and pretend, oh, just be brave and everything will be fine. I can't promise that. What I can tell you is that if you don't say something, it will probably get worse. But if you are strategic about the paper trail you build, about the way you speak up, you don't want to blow up all at once and blow a big whistle and have a big production. You want to have a thoughtful, strategic paper trail you build that can be subtle. And there's checklists and strategies and templates. I think you saw some of the templates in here. So that when you are ready to come forward, you control your story. When you are ready to come forward, you've got the ammo to back you up. Because a lot of times the way these abusers shut you out and make you look crazy is their strategy, is there's just no proof. And that's what they dance in. The lack of proof is where they say, well, I'm so important. I've built this business and everyone knows how important I am. And this is just a stupid little girl who's going to listen to her. I've seen that before. But then we see the text messages. Then we see the DMs. Then we see the pictures.
No, you mentioned the checklist. I love the template emails. Like,
you
and
like
for
them?
every
Thank you. Okay.
scenario, like if you're getting fired, if you think you're getting harassed at work, or I can't remember the specific examples, but there was a template email for kind of each scenario if you're dealing with it in the workplace that you can just copy and send, which is beautiful.
Yes, because it's like I said a few moments ago, a lot of times it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know what to say. You know, they think the biggest mistake I see is, well, saying nothing is catastrophic. Equally bad is saying way too much of the wrong stuff. I have seen emails this long, and for listeners, I'm holding up my hands way high apart. I've seen emails, no grammar, just one big block of text, and they're just stream of consciousness, everything that happened and how they feel about it. That is not going to get a positive response from anybody. Mm-mm. You need to be very deliberate and direct into what you're documenting and what you're calling out. So it's in this book. Also, it's not too late. Anyone who pre-orders the book gets a free secret bonus chapter about how to build a bulletproof paper trail. And it's got even more templates and more checklists. It's I made it to make this book like a supplement to this, so it's even more powerful. So that link is up in my bio if you follow me on Instagram @AttorneyRyan. So if you've already pre-ordered, you can just go there and plug in your receipt number and you get the bonus chapter. But pre-order your book before May 12th, 2026 to get the free chapter.
Cool.
Yeah. Before
May 12th.
Yeah. Or confront me in the street and demand it. I think I've got it in a USB drive somewhere.
So in regards to speaking up, is it best to speak up early or wait until something's so damaging? I mean, based on what you said, it's almost best not to wait because something bad, terribly, terribly bad could happen. But yeah. I have to think that like speaking up too early might get them on your radar. You
don't want to be the boy who cried wolf.
No.
You know, so that's why I say, you know, some of the paper trail strategies are subtle. You're not raising a complaint every time someone looks at you sideways. Every time someone just, you know, don't say, just because your boss says bitch or calls you a bitch. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. They should never speak to you that way. But isolated incident, running to HR, judgment call. Think about it. Do you want to be the person running to them every time someone just uses foul language or speaks to you or makes an offhand ignorant remark? You know, a single instance of just thick-headed, stupid, ignorant, racist, misogynistic comments, those are going to happen. And you got to decide how serious it is. Most of the time, that's not the thing you want to go running to HR, running to management for. Instead, you want to be deliberate about the paper trail. I mentioned that strategy of recapping calls, keeping all of your performance plans. When your boss gives you a command, maybe they call you and say, hey, I need a report, run down what the dates are on XYZ. Send a quick text. Hey, you called me at this day. You asked for a report on these specific things. You said it was due at this time. I'm going to get on that right away. Great. Making a paper trail is just establishing what are the conditions of work you are experiencing. What kind of orders are you getting? Are you fulfilling those orders? What's your performance look like? How much pay are you being promised? What kind of hours are you being told to work under? What's a typical communication between you and your boss? Does it ever change? If you're doing little things, very small, little, not time-intensive strategies, you can establish, hey, before everyone found out I was gay, there was a certain way my boss spoke to me. There was a certain expectation of what my duties were. Look at these weeks of summaries and recaps I've sent. Suddenly, he finds out I'm married to a woman. And now he's talking to me totally differently. The conversation's got really personal. He's asking a lot of weird questions he never asked me before. They're overloading me with work. They're giving me shorter timelines, less resources. They're leaving me out of meetings I used to be part of. This is why I don't need a boss to say, oh, I'm firing you because you're gay.
Yeah.
I can put together a paper trail and say, wow, wait a minute. We had a great performer, great relationship with the boss. Something happened. You requested a disability accommodation. You complained of missing wages. They found out you're gay. You attended, an event that they felt didn't align with their interests. They found out you're the wrong religion, whatever it is. And suddenly everything fell apart. So a paper trail that you maintain just as a matter of habit that is not nefarious. No one is going to look at you sending little, oh yes, here's how I understand your comment. No one's going to think you're plotting. But if you don't do that, and it's just, ever since you found out I was gay, you've started treating me different. Well, where's the proof? Mm-hmm. Now we have a problem. It's better to have a baseline with that paper trail. And do it when things are going well. Honestly, you look organized. You look like someone who's on top of it when you do it that way.
I like that.
I like it too. What's cool about being a practicing workers' rights lawyer who wrote this book is I'm able to reverse engineer and say, all right, look, I've seen these go all the way to an evidentiary hearing. I've seen it go all the way to a jury. I know what we're looking for, and I know what we wish we had. I know what's effective. I know what's not effective. I know how do we establish a baseline of what your conditions were at work before a protected activity happened or before you got that new manager who started being a creep. Mm-hmm. I'm really excited for people to read this book, not with the idea of thinking, oh, how do I find a way to sue my boss, but how do I take control of my conditions at work? How do I take control of what my life at work is going to be? I'm really excited for this to tip the balance of power.
Me too.
I was shocked that when I first had the idea, I went into the bookstores and I was looking for something similar. Just what's out there? What are people writing about? Not a lot. There's really not much like this out there. I was shocked. How is this not a book
That's
you get
crazy.
when you graduate high school? This should be like the government should make a little handbook. Hey, welcome, you're done with high school, you're going into the workforce. Here's the rule book. No one teaches you this shit. How can you be expected to play the game, let alone win it, if you don't know the rules? Yeah. It's like if I give you a game board and it's written in Chinese, and all right, good luck. A little help?
They don't.
Yeah.
You're just expected to know things.
Yeah.
Almost learn by trial and error.
Yeah, and those errors can be painful. Again, I absolutely recognize the fear, and I spend a lot of time addressing fear in this book. I think you might have noted that a big part of this book, I'm trying to sit with you and hold your hand and say, look, it's okay to be scared. I know why you're scared. It's your career. It's your reputation. It's your money. On the other end of a pink slip is maybe you losing your apartment. That's losing your health care. That's scary. But you can learn the rules, and you don't have to be afraid, and you don't have to take shit lying down. There's ways to safely stand up for yourself.
You mentioned going to HR.
Yeah.
People always say, especially HR departments are like, just come to us, report it.
Yeah.
Like, we're your friend. But who does HR actually protect?
Well, a really good test to know who your friend is and whose side someone's on, who signs their paycheck. Is it you? Well, I guess if it's not you, then they're not on their side. Here's the thing about HR. I've unfortunately gotten a reputation for being anti-HR. I don't think that's fair. I'd like to push back against that. There are wonderful HR people out there who do an excellent job, who put their necks out there for employees, who make sure employers are compliant. Those are not the people I sue. If you're in HR and you're on the other end of a lawsuit with me, it's because you've done something shitty, okay? But fundamentally, the job of HR is to protect the company from liability, to manage the personnel in a company, manage their leave, be compliant, and just keep the company out of trouble, okay? Unfortunately, you get some HR people who are very much company first or management first. And so when you come to them with a problem, they go, hey, Jen's talking about disability leave, and we don't want to deal with that. That's a problem. Or, hey, Jen's saying that so-and-so has made some racist remarks. I can tell she's going to be a problem, and we like her boss. We don't really need her, so let's just push her out. I've seen it a million times. So what does that mean? Does this mean that HR is just your generational enemy and your kids are going to hate HR and we never talk to HR? No, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. How you talk to them matters. You talk to them like you would talk to the cops. You don't go running to them with every personal issue. They're not your career counselor. They're not your therapist. Although I have seen a lot of HR people who think that they're some kind of career counselor or therapist. I've encountered HR where they have like a couch in their office and a nice warm light and tissues, and they try to set up like, oh, you come to me with anything, you're safe. Don't be running to HR telling them about every grievance you have, all your problems at home, who your work crush is, none of that shit. Fundamentally, they are a liaison between you and the company. They can facilitate things like interactive process, accommodations, and leave. They're going to facilitate when you leave the company, either voluntarily or involuntarily. They'll do their regular trainings. You need to document your conversations with them. And you need to be thoughtful and discerning about what kind of things you talk to them about. And I have a whole chapter in there about how to talk to HR and do it the right way.
I love it. I must not have gotten there yet.
It's towards the end. So the way the book is laid out is there's a sort of intro where I say, look, here's what we're going to learn. Here's the stakes, and here's some questions I'm sure you have out the gate. Let's get that answered. Part 1 is then a general overview of your rights, 8 of the most asked about biggest issues that everyone encounters with examples. Part 2 is called Protect Your Money, and it's about making sure that you get paid everything you're supposed to be paid, the right amount for the right amount of time, and you understand when you're getting ripped off. A lot of great stuff in Part 2. Part 3 is about protecting your health and protecting your boundaries at work. That's the things like protected leave, family leave, disability leave, also what happens if you get hurt at work. Very health focused there. And then Part 4, we take everything we learned in parts 1, 2, and 3, and we bring it all together. Here's how you talk to HR. Here's what you do if you're confronted with an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, an arbitration agreement, non-solicit. What about intellectual property? I've seen employees get sued for violating companies' intellectual property, trade secrets. It was bullshit, but how do we put this all together? Mm-hmm. So the book is a reference. It's definitely a reference guide. You can just keep it as a little reference and say, hey, they're saying that I don't get workers' comp because it was my fault I got hurt. Is that true? Flip to the workers' comp and you'll see fault's generally not a factor in a workers' comp claim.
That was literally one of the follower questions I got.
Yeah. And I say generally because there's a lot of situations. I mean, if you go out.
Depends.
Yeah. If you go out on a frolic and you just take the company van and go party with it and get hurt, I don't think workers' comp's going to cover you in that situation. But, if you work in a warehouse and it can be argued that you got a little loosey-goosey with the ladder and it fell, fault is generally not a factor in workers' comp, So it's a reference. You can flip to your specific issue or you can read it cover to cover. And we have a step-by-step guide like, hey, at the beginning of this book, you don't know your rights. You're maybe a little afraid. And at the end of the book, hopefully, you're not afraid anymore. You understand what the risks are. You understand what's maybe kind of blown out of proportion and what you can control, what you can't control. And at the end of it, you should feel a lot more comfortable with your job.
For anybody that is getting or is about to be fired, HR or whoever hands you a big packet and says, just sign this.
Yes.
On your way out, just sign this and we'll give you this nice severance package.
If that, just say, sign this, you got to sign it. I've seen it. HR, look, it's an unregulated profession. So there are some really wonderful HR executives who I really admire. I'm friends with HR executives. My sister is an HR executive. I do respect people who practice the profession and practice it well. But like any profession, there are scumbag, shitty lawyers out there, okay? Mm-hmm. There are some shitty, scumbag, lying, ambulance-chasing pieces of shit who call themselves lawyers. So when people come to me and say, oh, you attacked HR, how would you feel if I called you an ambulance chaser? I'm like, well earned. There's plenty of shitty lawyers out there, just like there's shitty anything else. You will get HR who lie to you about the law. Mm-hmm. You'll get management who lies to you about the law. They'll throw that giant stack in front of you, say, hey, you've been fired. We don't have to tell you the reason why. But due to federal regulations, we can't release your final paycheck till you sign all this. I've seen that. That's an actual lie I've heard, made up. You don't have to sign shit when you're fired. Now, you might want to, depends on what's in the packet. A lot of things that they'll send you, they might ask you to sign something that you've returned company property, fine. Something acknowledging you have a continuing duty not to disclose trade secrets, fine. Acknowledgement you got your full final paycheck. Wait till you get the check and maybe look it over and make sure it's correct before you sign that, because the reason they want you to sign that is so you can't come back and say, hey, my final pay was wrong. You owe me more money. Especially in California where we have waiting time penalties, that document can have tremendous financial implications for you. Because if they say withhold your PTO, this is for California specifically, if they withhold your PTO or withhold some of your overtime, whatever it is, a penalty accrues until they get it to you. But they're trying to nip that in the bud by saying, well, you signed a form verifying that all the pay was correct. The other form that you mentioned, very smart, some kind of waiver, a waiver of your right to sue them, because they don't want to look over your shoulder wondering, hey, is this person going to come back and be a problem? Sometimes they offer you severance. That severance is probably pretty small. Maybe 2 weeks worth of pay is common. There used to be a time back in the day where 2 to 4 weeks of pay for every year of service was considered typical. I'm seeing less and less and less of that. More often than not, I'm seeing one additional pay period at best. They will try to tell you, well, you've got to do it, it expires. They'll use all kinds of pressure tactics on you. Take it home. Seriously, take it home. This stuff is negotiable. It's all negotiable. I've negotiated severance for clients. I just recently had a client who was offered nothing. I got her $65,000 of severance. Yeah, I'm fucking good at what I do. Okay? I'm not, there's a lot of bad stuff I'm bad at. I'm not bad at this, you know. Thank God she didn't sign. And what was funny, well, not funny, what was notable is she experienced all the pressure. They were like, you know, you have to sign this. You have to sign this. It was no severance.
The daily reminder calls.
I don't,
hey,
you've got to do it. You've got to do it, you know. And then they got nervous, and I think this is where they showed their cards. They offered her, it was like $6,000 after she had not signed for a bit. And then she was like, well, that's almost worse than zero. That's pitiful. I don't know why it feels worse, but it just feels insulting. And then she came to me and we negotiated.
And you're like, now I'm going to sink my teeth in.
But that ended up being a tremendously good decision on her part to not make a decision in the heat of the moment. Don't let them timeshare salesman you into signing something with such huge financial implications. Just remember, regardless of what they say, regardless of the threats, severance is almost always negotiable. And even if it wasn't, you shouldn't be signing legal documents without at least taking it home for a minute and understanding what you're signing.
Can you take it home and probably reference this book and get an idea? Maybe at least.
This is not a replacement for a lawyer's advice.
I'll put a disclaimer in here.
Yeah, it doesn't apply to all situations. It's certainly helpful. So I have a section in here about severance, and I shouldn't do this because I'm giving up my own, you know, tools of the trade here, but I talk about, hey, here's what I look for in a severance negotiation. Yeah, it helps a lot if there's a possible legal violation that definitely incentivizes them to pay more. But here's other things you can look for. Here's other little levers you can pull to get a little bit more severance out of them. And by the way, don't get so hyper-focused on the money you forget about things like, where the fuck is your health care going to come from? Mm-hmm. Especially if you have a pre-existing condition or you have a kid coming, you want to protect that. So what is COBRA? How does it work? How do we get the employer to maybe pay more towards COBRA? So I have a section on how to negotiate your severance. And hopefully people use it and advocate for themselves. I do hope that they take documents to a lawyer to understand what they're signing.
Should you just go to the first lawyer who's willing to take your case?
Absolutely. Just go to the very first one. Whoever has the most billboards is, if they have the most billboards, that means they're the best lawyer.
I cannot. Have you, like, I don't know if you've driven to Vegas lately. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Like everywhere. And I go, either they must be making so much money from those billboards, or like it's just like a way to flush like a lot of income. I don't know why
I think the theory is that if you get in an accident on the highway and they have enough of their billboards, that like the first thing you see when you look up is, oh fuck yeah, give him a call.
We can't mention it. We're not gonna give him free promo. We gotta cut him out. Because I was gonna say it, and I was like, no. See,
well, for instance, hey, look, a lawyer right above my head.
Yes. Is the first person I thought of.
Well, it's funny because we're in the LA-ish area and they've got a lot of billboards. And look, I tease. Just because you have a lot of billboards doesn't mean you're a bad lawyer, but it also doesn't mean you're a good lawyer. Mm-hmm. So I do say in the book, you should call around. Your case is too important to trust with the first lawyer who takes your call. Mm-hmm. You should talk to a few, and get a feel for who makes me feel comfortable. Who makes me feel like they're taking the time to explain my rights, help me understand the situation. Understand that for most law firms, you're probably not going to call them without an appointment and get a lawyer on the phone right away. That doesn't necessarily mean they don't care about you. Just go through their process. If that process remains impersonal the whole time and no one really seems to care, then move on. But talk to a few lawyers and ask about contingency too. There are lawyers who charge an hourly fee for employment matters. I don't do it that way. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. Fortunately, I'm not alone. Ask, hey, what are the fees? Mm-hmm. Lawyers' fees are negotiable. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, when you're talking to them, do you feel like, is this someone who's going to explain the process to me? Is this person going to keep me informed of what's going on? Is this person going to litigate if necessary? Are they going to fight for me? Or are they just going to send a demand letter and take the first look at reviews and get a feel for who you feel comfortable talking to?
One thing I have noticed is a lot of employees, or at least what I've heard, is there's a lot of employees that are afraid to talk about their salary, mm-hmm. and are in fact discouraged from talking about their salary in the workplace. Mm-hmm. Can you speak a little bit to that and whether or not that is legal?
Well, generally it violates a few laws. It violates the National Labor Relations Act, and there are some exceptions to it in certain sections of the federal government, but 99.99% of people are not part of that exception. If you are listening to this, it is very high probability you are protected by the National Labor Relations Act. Discussions about pay and work conditions are called concerted activities in the law. Concerted activities are protected. Employees have a federally protected right to engage in mutual welfare, mutual protection, collective bargaining. And part of that process is, hey, Jen, we're doing the same job, right? Right. We both have the same education? Yeah. How much are you getting paid? I'm getting 40. I'm getting 60, Jen. What the fuck? Why? Well, I'm a man. Talking about your pay is the number one way to identify and address discrimination. I talk about a case in my book about a woman who worked at Disney for a very long time, very high-level executive, very important, established in her career. She was a black woman. And she found out that not only was she the lowest person paid in her department, but of all managers, she was one of the lowest paid. And not by a little, by a lot. We're talking as high as $20,000 a year, even $50,000 a year in some cases. And, you know, that's not an isolated incident. Pay is disparate among people for a variety of reasons. But you need to be able to talk about who's getting paid what. And those kind of discussions help make sure that you're not getting shortchanged, you're not getting discriminated against, and you're not being denied something that you've earned. We see a lot of that. It's not always discrimination. It's not always like, oh, you know, you're being paid less because you're a woman, being paid less because you're a person of color. A lot of times it's just, well, you know, Jen asked for a raise and Ryan didn't. Oh my God, Jen, thank you for telling me. I'm going to go present my performance and ask for a raise. And there's nothing nefarious about that. An employer who discourages those kind of discussions, first of all, I wouldn't want to work for someone like that. I think it's incredibly dishonest, shady behavior. But also, what are you hiding? So it is a federally protected right. You should do it. Now, I do get a lot of people saying it's no one's business what I earn. Fine, your call. You don't have to. talk about it if you don't want to. But it is an important right that people have.
Do you think people should talk about it more?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Why not? I think, especially in the United States, we get uncomfy talking about money. And there's a lot of reasons for it. I think when people work at a place for a while and they get to a certain salary, they think, well, I earned this and I worked really hard for this. And I don't want to see someone just come in right off the bat and get what I got without earning it. And so there's some people think, I don't want to talk about my pay because I want to protect what I had to work so hard to get. That's upside down and backwards. The answer isn't, I want other people to make less. The answer is, hey, if someone's getting close to you and moving up, you should go up too. Everyone's pay should be going up year over year. And those discussions are healthy. But we get so wrapped up in valuing ourselves based on how much compensation we get from our jobs. How much money you get paid from your job is not a reflection of your value as a person at all. But I feel like in the US, we've kind of twisted it that way. But you should have these discussions. You work for money. Why wouldn't you talk about the whole reason you're there? Why wouldn't you talk about whether you're getting a fair deal or not? It's insane to me, the trick that corporations have pulled. They've taught a lot of people that it's uncouth, it's rude, it's inconsiderate, unprofessional to talk about your pay. Absolutely not. It's the whole reason you're there. You should talk about it.
Yeah, especially when you can, have you ever done that? Oh my God, I'm getting so old.
Do you have insurance on this show? I'm thinking we need some insurance for you. We need some coughing insurance. We need some neck. Are you okay? No, all jokes aside.
Have you ever tweaked your neck just randomly? It just spasmed?
I do. I get random shivers, and my fiance Gabby, she hates it because it spooks her. I'll just be chilling.
And you just
one of those
all the time.
And she'll be like, "What the hell was that?" And I'm like, "None of your business."
I swear my body's trying to kill me right now. Did you want to stop really quick?
I don't know. I find this abrasive and disappointing. I can't believe I came.
Are you serious?
No, this is wonderful. I'm joking.
I'm letting you
No,
talk.
You're doing great. This is good.
I'm very guilty of when I am the one doing the editing, I find I talk over people a lot. And so thank you for just...
No, talk over me more.
No.
I'm good.
It makes it a nightmare for the sound guy in there. When I had the Pop Brothers on...
Oh, God.
Who talked about their rights when you get pulled over by cops. Who were smoking weed on the entire podcast.
That is so awesome.
They're brothers, so they were talking over each other the whole time. And the mics kept bleeding. And I was like, there's nothing I could do about it.
That's so. I got to check into that episode. I remember seeing clips. I got to maybe listen on the way
home. It was really long. It was hilarious. You know, it's funny. I was just thinking about this the other day. Some of my best content episodes are my worst performing videos.
Isn't that funny how that happens?
Part of me goes God damn, if more people didn't just, watch this one thing. But then I remember what I do it for, and I get a little gleeful knowing that no one's seen some of my best stuff because it's just it didn't hit for some people, or the algorithm didn't.
That happens for reasons we can't explain.
Yeah.
Look, I do that. I'm a content creator too.
I know.
I have stuff that I'm like, that's my baby. That's my best work. And no one gives a shit about it. And then I'll have something that's just an offhand, ha-ha thing. And it's super viral and freaking Daily Mail wants to talk about it. And it's in the paper. And it's I didn't give a shit about that. Here's my baby. You don't want to see my baby? I worked really hard on this. And no one cares.
What have you found is your the stuff that pops up the most? It's got to be your rants.
The rants pop off, which is interesting because that's just me. I'm never doing that ooh, I hope this goes viral.
No, it's just you being you.
I kind of do it. I posted one recently that blew up, and I remember thinking...
What the fuck are we doing, guys?
Yeah,
what the fuck are we doing?
The fuck are we doing? Honestly, what the fuck are we doing, guys? He posts this picture of himself as Jesus. He's healing. Is that Epstein? Is that supposed to be his buddy Epstein he's healing? And what are these people doing? Are they praying to Trump? Is he the son of God now? Is that what he's trying to tell you? What's that? What is that? Is it a demon? Is it a biblically accurate warped version of the Statue of Liberty? I don't know what that is.
And I was yes, Ryan,
When I posted that, I thought this is going to get 6,000 views. But look, I have one Instagram page, and as of today, I have a First Amendment right to express myself.
Amen.
I want to exercise my speech. I didn't like something. I wanted to talk about it. I think more often than not, people really appreciate authenticity. They don't like scripted stuff. Now, I have some stuff that's, a little higher production. I do like videos and stuff behind me and like break down an argument. And that tends to do okay most of the time. I had one where I talked about the Trump administration using a little known kind of national defense exemption to essentially sentence a number of species to extinction in the Gulf, all to pump oil, because that's all he gives a shit about. But it was a well-made video, and it did well. And I knew it was going to do well when I made it. Other videos like the rants, I'm just like, I'm doing this for love of the game. I'm doing this because I have a constitutional right to speak my mind. And
as you should.
Yeah, and it's less about, I hope this goes viral. Some of my rants, I'm like, I kind of hope no one sees this, but it's a paradox.
Same.
Where I want the freedom to express myself, but also be free from consequences.
Same. Yeah. I feel like maybe you deal with this. I struggle between this line of like not giving a fuck and then deleting shit because I'm like, oh no, I'm gonna meet some consequences that I don't like. You probably don't deal with it as much as I do, but I feel like I am constantly in this anxiety point of like, am I gonna say something that's gonna piss everybody off? And like I'll pull it. I'm getting better. I feel like the last month in particular, I'm coming back out. I get yelled at a lot.
It's just, if you want to get anywhere in life, you have to be comfortable with the idea of being misunderstood and disliked.
And not liked.
And I think fundamentally a lot of people get caught in this trap of, hey, you're getting angry at me over how you feel, but that's not what I said. You're putting words in my mouth. There are people who are going to willfully or negligently misinterpret what you say and assume the worst. And that can be hurtful because it's like you're not being seen. Or worse, you're being cast in a light that's not you. Or you have people who understood very clearly what you meant and they fucking hate it. And they hate you and you're stupid. And they come after you. And that can feel jarring to have someone lash out at you so hard like that. I don't really have a solution except that you've just got to be comfortable with the fact that no matter what, if you put yourself out there, some people are going to misunderstand. Some people are going to dislike you, and you have to be okay with that.
Has anybody ever asked you if you're worried about your legal career because of what you post?
I've had people threaten me and say
really?
things like that. Yeah, I've certainly had bar complaints from just randoms.
No way.
I've gotten 1-star reviews on my business pages from people who were not clients. Everyone who's ever been a client has left me a 5-star review. Every 1-star you see is someone being like, oh, he's a liberal hack. I wouldn't trust him. He doesn't believe in our God King Trump or whatever the fuck their
People submitted complaints to the bar?
Bar complaints are very easy to send, and people send them all the time.
Oh my God.
It was funny. I spoke to a man once, and his name is slipping me, but he worked at the California Bar Association and said, when we come up to work in this field, one of the first things they do is show us our file and show us all the complaints against us. A complaint doesn't necessarily mean you did something wrong. It just means someone was angry with you for one reason or another. And they're not going to waste their time. If someone clearly was never a client and they send a bogus report because they saw a video of yours they didn't like, and they're, he's a piece of shit, the bar's not going to do anything about that. Do I worry about my career? No. This is a new form of reaching the public and expanding accessibility to justice that I'm very proud to be part of. I'm proud of the way I use my social media. I'm proud that I don't put on a tie and put myself in front of a bunch of books and pretend to be more important than everyone else and say, well, in California. I like that I can speak to people and say, look, I have the benefit and the privilege of getting some legal education. I can cut past the headlines and help you understand what's really happening out there. I can help cut past the bullshit we hear at work and tell you how this stuff really works. And not everyone has to like that. And that's okay. I really like the path I'm on. And if someone has got a problem with it, they don't have to be part of my story. That's fine.
I like the path you're on with everything going on in the world and in the country.
Why, did something happen?
I know. I've been living under a rock. I have no idea what's been going on.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how one doesn't lose their shit on a daily basis. Maybe if you're in a constant state of dissociation, which I feel like I have been in the last 4 months, it's just a constant state of... But how much of it do you think is designed to make you very angry?
There's a lot of people, I find it kind of annoying, frankly, if people say, it's a distraction, it's all for this, it's the same. It's like... Have you considered the possibility that there's several hundred or perhaps several thousand people in the government right now who are just awful people doing multiple bad things at once? And maybe, Stephen Miller using his position to hurt people he doesn't like and get rich isn't a distraction. It's just a bad person doing bad things. Is that
Those
so hard to
people
believe?
exist, yeah.
Is it so hard to believe that when you fire about 50-something generals and go attack a country that we've had extensive intelligence on and we haven't attacked for a reason, and suddenly it's going badly? Is it so hard to believe that that's actually just a fuck up and not some nefarious, it's to distract from the Epstein file? The guy's just an idiot. Mm-hmm. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm. Also, release the Epstein files.
Please.
All of them, please. Please, please.
Good luck, because the acting head of the DOJ famously said it's not a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. That's an insane take, if I've ever heard one. So how do I not lose my shit? I do lose my shit sometimes. And I'm very privileged that I have an outlet. I can speak my mind. It comes with some consequences. I take some heat for it. But fine, that's the cost of admission. I have a very loving family who keeps me grounded. I have friends. And I'll tell you this, I was really starting to get hopeless in January of this year.
Same.
I was kind of like, there was a part of me that thought things will never be okay again. This is so bad. And it's true, this is bad. It's worse than it looks. And the consequences are going to be felt for the rest of our lives. And our children will feel these consequences as well. You can't break this much shit without consequences. But I started volunteering with Feeding San Diego, the wonderful hunger relief and food rescue program. And I meet wonderful people who, out of the goodness of their hearts, wake up early and work hard just to make sure that people have food. And when I started doing that, it gave me a lot of hope. It made me think of that Fred Rogers quote, look for the helpers. Mm-hmm. The more I started doing things like volunteering and getting out there, the more I got my hope back. It reminded me that the world isn't full of Donald Trumps and Pete Hegseths and Stephen Millers. They're there and they're up on the scoreboard right now. But they are not the majority of humanity. Humanity has seen a lot of Donald Trumps. And humanity has survived Donald Trumps. What matters most is that in speaking up and fighting these tough times, we don't lose sight of what we're fighting for. A society where everyone has a fair shot, where people are free to be themselves, where you can pursue a hobby, pursue your interest, express yourself, enjoy the company of other people, pick up and start a new life somewhere, fall in love, start a family, be treated with dignity. These are basic fucking things. And it hurts that we have to fight so hard to get them for people. But if we stay together, if you focus on community, focus on friendships, and step outside your comfort zone, truly, volunteering helps a lot. You're not going to lose sight of what really matters, because Trump is not going to last forever. Mm-hmm. This MAGA, anti-human bullshit, anti-civil rights bullshit we're seeing, it is not going to last forever. Mm-mm. And when we get to the other side of it, I'm not saying we're going to be unscathed. I know what the stakes are here. But when we get to the other side of it, we do not want to look in the mirror and find out we became our enemy. Mm. We have to hold on to the stuff that makes life worth living. And I tell people all the time, just because times are dark or scary doesn't mean you don't have a right to experience joy. You have a right to experience laughter with friends. Oh, but things are bad. Yes, things are bad. I mean, isn't it so beautiful that we've, unfortunately, in my life as a millennial, we've been in a constant state of war in the Middle East. It feels like we just bomb the Middle East all the time. And I've seen videos of the people who live in that region. They find time. They find, it's so noble. They find time for dancing, for laughter, for music. They find a way to press on, and I find that inspiring. And we can do that here. I'm not trying to say everything's going to be okay. I'm saying we have to make a choice to hold on to the joy and make sure that people don't take it from us. And that's pretty meta. I think the book helps with that on a micro level at work, and on a bigger level, just focusing on community and being a good neighbor is what gets us through this.
I love that you said that. Like, Beirut is actually known to be one of the best party cities in the world, because you never know when your last day is going to be. And so you got to make the most out of whatever's happening in the moment and enjoy each other and your community. And
there's a certain carpe diem with that culture. My fiance is Lebanese, very Lebanese.
Really?
Her father actually
Good for you.
fled the country during a civil war back in it was the 70s or 80s and started a new life here in the United States.
That was my dad.
He is. Yeah, there we go. And I knew you had that connection too.
Yeah.
I think the way Lebanon is portrayed in the U.S. media versus the first-hand accounts I get from Gabby and her father and their family,
totally
it's very different. And I do think there's a certain corporate or propaganda interest in making the people in these countries look like they're savages or monsters or different from us in some way. And they're not. They're really not. The real monsters are the people who sit in the defense contractor boardrooms and figure out how to get rich off missiles bombing kids.
Yeah.
Is that a hot take? How is that a hot take?
It is.
How is that? Someone's going to see that and get mad. And I just don't understand how that's a hot take, but it is.
Because it didn't happen, Ryan. That's all propaganda.
I've got TDS.
It's ridiculous. Okay, really quick.
Someone was thinking about buying this book, and then I said that. Now they're like, well, fuck this guy.
That's why I was, well, you know what? That's why I was like, I'm not even going to bring it up. I could bring it up, but I'm not going to bring it up today. But
hey, you have access to my socials. You know who I am.
Yeah, for sure. That is true. That is true. I asked for some audience questions. I'm just going to ask you a couple of them.
Oh, please, yeah.
And this is not legal advice that is personal to you. This is just we're general legal talk. My boss recently told me when I could take my PTO days and how many I could take. Is that legal?
Oh, God, I got to be an annoying lawyer and say it depends. I want to know what you're taking your PTO for. If it's just personal days and vacation, they've got broad discretion to control that. They can say, hey, we've got blackout days. You can't take vacation on these days. You can take them on these days. Hey, we can't give you 20 hours of PTO. We can give you 18 for this period. So long as they don't have a use it or lose it policy. I mean, that's legal in some states. It's not legal in California. I think it is legal in Delaware. Don't quote me on that. As long as they are not wrongfully taking it away from you, they have broad discretion. Now, if you are dealing with a family emergency or a medical issue, don't be asking for vacation. Don't be asking for PTO. Don't ask for stress leave even. Now you need to start talking about FMLA leave or leave as a form of accommodation. And this book is very helpful with knowing, hey, what's the difference between I need PTO and I need protected time off? Because protected time off, the employer loses a lot of control. You get to be in the driver's seat when it's protected.
Why do employers lie about pay on hiring people? And this is a great question, because I've noticed that a lot of like LinkedIn or job postings or whatever, and maybe you can't speak to this because it's about hiring people, but I have noticed there's a lot of employers out there who will say one thing and then upon hiring you be like, oh, that isn't what we discussed.
The old bait and switch.
For sure.
Absolutely. There's a couple of ways that happens. I've seen it come up in different ways. The most common is they give you a range, or they say, you can earn up to, and they'll just put out a preposterous figure, up to 150K. And then you get there and they go, well, it's based on performance and commissions. And if you sell, 20 widgets an hour every hour for 24 hours a day for 7 days straight, yes, you can make 150K. I see that a lot in sales positions. I have people come to me saying, they told me I'd make 300K a year. How much are you making? 60. That's a big difference. What happened? Well, they said that if I sold this much, can you sell that much? It's like, well, I thought if I worked hard, but it turns out that's not how the sales cycle works, So you get a lot of overpromise, underdeliver. You get a lot of broad ranges because remember, they're trying to invest as little money as possible and get as much labor as possible for that money. They're also, what we're seeing now is these pay transparency laws, and they're popping up in different states. New York and California have this, where if they put up a job, they have to disclose what the salary range will be. But again, it's a range. The law doesn't say you have to say exactly what the person will make. So people will get a range. Maybe they talk to a recruiter. The recruiter has a financial interest in getting you to sit for that interview. And the recruiter might say, oh, yeah, people can make up to 80, up to 90, up to 100. But the range was 50 to something. And then you get less than what you were promised. But that's another reason why paper trails are important. You want to document what these conversations are. Because too often it's people come to me and they say, oh, they said I could have made up to this much. What metrics did they say you had to meet? Oh, I don't have them. I can't go to an employer and say you were promised X so long as you did Y if I don't have any documentation on that.
It's a great point.
Yeah.
Mention it, especially because a lot of these interviews happen on Zoom and stuff is just mentioned.
You want to get your metrics.
Yeah.
You're telling me I can make, and I keep saying this because it's the most common form of fuckery I see is the range, and they offer you the bottom of the range because you're entry level. Or they say you can earn up to, and then you never hit that. You want to, okay, you said I can earn up to $150K a year. What specific metrics do I need to hit to get there? Don't just say, oh, if I work hard and apply myself, it might happen. Tell me, what are the goalposts?
And get it in writing.
Yeah. Great.
And get it in writing.
There you go.
Get it in writing. May 12th. If you pre-order it before May 12th, you get the bonus chapter.
It's a whole chapter I wrote just for you.
Oh, with a checklist and a reference.
And templates, all kinds of cool
I
shit.
love it. Ryan, thank you so much for coming up here today.
Thanks for
and
having
talking
me.
about it.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, I got the juice like a snow cone. Ice in my veins and a cold flow. I'm getting